My name is Juan.
I hear we have a Juan in class today.
My name is Juan.
Get everybody loaded in. Go ahead and get my screen going. Let's see who all we've got and who we are missing. All right, Sadie, Claire. So we're missing Kinsley. Here comes Mark. We got Zoe Owens.
Is that the?
Who else? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. So I think Zoe and Kinsley are the only ones we're missing. I'll give them just another minute. While you guys, oh, here comes Kinsley. While we're waiting on them, if you have not already printed out the new homework stuff, then that's fine. If you have a way to look at it, I'm going to go ahead and pull it into my Notability so we can talk about it, make sure we're good with everything. We're going to practice with it. We're going to do some samples and hopefully find that it's going to be something that's going to help us all to understand our work. Alrighty, so what we're going to do today is the first thing we're going to do is talk about the homework guidelines. Then we will answer any final questions that you may have about the packet. And then we will review what we did on Thursday, starting with eliminating our denominator that is a radical called rationalizing the denominator, and then we're going to keep going from there, okay? So if you have already printed this out, fantastic. If you have not, and you can look at it on your computer screen or you can look on it at mine, I just want to make sure we go through it so you can ask any questions about anything that I wasn't clear about and all that good stuff. And then I'll try, there's Zoe. Hey Zoe, we're getting started by going over the new homework guidelines. So that's where we're going to start today. Okay.
And then I realized, wait a second, this is Monday.
Yes. Very good. I always have to do the same thing. I've got my whole list of things. And so I've got the algebra Monday, Thursday. I've got pre-algebra Monday, Thursday. I've got a math study hall on Mondays. I have ACT on Wednesdays. I've got geometry on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So I'm always going, okay, what day is it? Just like the other day, what day was it? Wednesday morning, I think it was, when I got to the building. And I started going into a classroom and realized this is not my classroom. These are not my students. And I was all mixed up because on Wednesday mornings, my geometry class meets in one room and on Thursday mornings, they meet in another room. So, hey, I'm right there with you. I'm all mixed up all the time, half the time about trying to figure out what Zoom meeting and what classroom I'm supposed to be in. But we're gonna make it, we're gonna get there. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is talk about our new homework guidelines. Okay, so first thing is gonna be the heading. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip down for just a minute and talk about kind of the heading. I put you guys a sample in here for you to be able to see kind of what a heading looks like. Not a huge deal. Just put your name and the lesson number. You can put the page number, however you want to do it. But the main thing is I just need something to identify that on this piece of paper, it is this person's paper and it's covering this information. Okay, so that's what the heading is for. And so, so it says the heading, when completing anything on notebook paper, a heading is required. The heading consists of your name, the lesson number, and page number. The heading can be in the upper left or the upper right corner. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, you can pick which corner you want to put it in. If you have multiple pages, make sure to put a heading on each page just in case somehow they came apart and we don't know what's what. Just go ahead and head each page. Just get into that habit. And then be sure to paperclip or staple all your work together, okay? Staples are ideal, but not always available. So if you can staple it, great. If not, just clip it together in order. That's a big thing, in order. All right, lesson notes. This was something that I added on Friday because I realized the importance of going back to the lesson to review what the steps are and to review the most important information before you actually sit down and do your work, okay? So often we have homework and we open our book or our worksheet or whatever it is and we look at the problem and when we see the problem and we don't know immediately what to do, we just go, I don't know what to do. We try our best at it and we may do something, but I think so often we forget to go back to the lesson and say, you know what, we've learned these steps. We know exactly what to do. So that's why I wanted to add this in here. So go back to the lesson that we have previously learned about that content. So what I've done as a sample, again, this is from lesson 22 on page 49. Okay, this was rationalizing our denominators. So what I did is on page, if you want to open up your book to page 49, and you can kind of see exactly where I pulled this from. 49, it's in the green box on the left-hand side. And so about halfway down, first of all, it talks about rationalizing denominators, and it gives us 3 different types of rationalizing denominators. And about halfway down, there's a sentence that starts with, this book will consider the first 2 options. Right underneath that, it says, to rationalize a denominator containing a square root, multiply both the numerator and the denominator of that fraction by the root and the denominator. So that's what I put as my first point of information that I need to know to be able to work these problems. If it's a square root, I've got to multiply the numerator and denominator by that radical and the denominator. So then I went on to say square roots need to be multiplied once to eliminate the square root of the denominator. But then if we go on down, it says to rationalize a denominator containing a higher ordered root. It gave us a formula. We didn't talk about the formula. What I ended up telling you was that if it's a cubed root, we need to multiply it 3 times total to be able to have 3 of whatever our cube is in the denominator. So then that tells me, okay, if it's a square root and I need to multiply it 2 times, and it's a cubed root, I need to multiply it 3 times. Hopefully I would figure it out that if it's a 4th root, how many times do I need to multiply it? 4 times, okay? So kind of seeing that pattern. And then the last step I put was simplify the solution, simplify radicals in the numerator if needed, and reduce whole numbers if possible. So sometimes it's going to be directly information that's printed in the textbook. Sometimes I tell you things when I'm teaching the lesson and I'll say, hey, be sure to add this in there. So I'll try to be much more careful about that as we're going through these things to make sure you know what's going to be the most important information to write in your lesson notes, okay? Then that way you've got these kind of highlighted pieces of information staring you right in the face while you're working those problems. You're not having to flip back pages. You're not having to go to, you know, once you've got that information on your paper, you're looking at that. And if you get stuck, you just look up at the top. Oh yeah, this is what I need to do. Okay, and then you keep working. Okay, so that's the purpose of the lesson notes. You guys know that I'm a big believer of having, Chad, take it off. You know, I'm a big believer of the whole writing and brain connection. Okay, y'all know that I really, really firmly believe, and there's a lot of research out there that says that the more times you write something, the more it goes into your brain. So that's one of the things that I've been struggling with is I haven't wanted you to have to take a ton of notes when we're doing the virtual thing and the back and forth and things like that. But I do feel like because you're not writing notes necessarily, there's some students that's their natural tendency. They like to write notes. They write them out because they know it helps them understand. That's fantastic. But not everybody does that, but I think it can be beneficial. Okay, so that's the purpose of the lesson notes. It's to not only go through that material one more time before you sit down to do your work, but it also gives you a place to look when you get stuck. Okay, so I'm gonna scroll back up to the top.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when we're in class, I write notes on a piece of paper, and I normally take up the whole paper.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to write the notes on the paper I turn in homework on?
You're not writing this whole sheet of notes right here. You're just kind of putting the highlights. Okay, you're just kind of maybe trying to condense it a little bit to say, hey, this is the most important stuff that I need to know to work these problems. Okay, and so what we'll do is we'll work through some of that and we'll practice with that to help you know how to kind of condense that information. I'm glad you asked that question. Okay, so it says write out the steps to solving the problems identified in the lesson notes, either printed in the text or notes that I've told you to add to the text. Okay, and then write out any important rules, terms, or other information that's going to be helpful for you to complete the assignment. That might be, it might give an equation that you need to use every time to solve it. It may be a definition that is something that you know you need to remember, but anything that you feel is important for you to remember how to work that problem. Steps in a process, equations, definitions, whatever, okay? Now, the next section says show your work. I know this is something that a lot of you are not going to be happy about, but I've got to be able to see your work, and I have see example. We're going to show an example in just a minute. Identify each section of your homework with the page number and activities number. So when you're doing your assignment, you'll go page number whatever, or you know, if it's page number 49, activities 2, then you'll label that at the top. Students must write out the problem. So the first thing you're going to do is write the problem and then show your work step by step. This is essential in math. Mistakes are often made because this step is neglected. Be sure to verify the problem was written correctly. There's a lot of times that I'll be going through your work and I'll see where maybe you just didn't write the problem correctly and you made a minus sign, a plus sign, or you forgot to put your minus or plus, and now it looks like multiplication or just whatever it is, okay? So make sure you've written the problem correctly. Don't do anything in your head, even if you can. If you work out a problem in your head and I can't see the steps, it's going to be marked incorrect, okay? So it says I need to visually see that you understand the process. This is a non-negotiable. Please do not put me in a position where I must mark a correct answer incorrect. And then it says write out every step for every problem, whether it's on notebook paper, on worksheets, on tests, on anything that you turn in. I want you writing the problem and working it out, okay? Now, if it's a worksheet and the problem's written right there for you and you can just start working it underneath it, that's totally fine. But I need it neat and organized. I need it to be step by step so I can follow along what you did. So last night I was working with my son on his math and I was about to pull my hair out because I am not his teacher. Therefore, when I tell him to write neatly, it does not matter what I have said because his teacher has not corrected all that. And so it was a hot mess. And I told him, I said, look, dude, you're going to get things counted wrong. He couldn't keep up with when he had carried something. He had so much mess written, he didn't know, he'd forget to add in what he carried because he couldn't see it. So organization is a huge, important thing, okay? Unfortunately, I guess it's going to take his teacher telling him because, you know, sometimes when moms tell you stuff, we don't necessarily go along with that. But now as your teacher, I'm telling you, I need it nice and neat and organized because that's going to help you, okay? Also, it's going to help you in higher level math classes to go ahead and do all that. Legibility. Indicate the correct answer by either circling or highlighting your answer. Once you have finished working the problem, to me, it's easier just to circle it and move on because I don't want to take the time to grab another pen or to grab a highlighter or whatever. The sample work that I have included, the student highlighted their answers. It is totally up to you how you want to do it. Okay, you can highlight it, you can circle it, whatever you want to do, just so I can look at the problem, see its layout, and see the answer immediately. Skip a space between problems and make sure you have enough space while working your problems. I often see mistakes made due to not giving yourself enough space. And that was like the example I was just giving you about my son. Always use pencil or an erasable pen on assignments. I told you guys that I got a lot of this information from Miss Steph. Miss Steph says use pencil only, but I'm totally fine with erasable pen as long as when you erase something, you erase it completely. Do not just scratch it out and move on. That drives me insane, okay? So whether it's pencil or pen, don't just scribble it out and move on. Erase what you've made a mistake on. Now, this is when you're doing your first run, like you've accidentally written a 3 instead of a 5. I'm not talking about when you're reworking the problem. That's going to be done on a separate sheet. I do not want you to erase work to make corrections. I'm talking about when you're writing the problem down and you make a mistake as you're doing your initial thing. So make sure you erase it. When grading, use either red ink or a bright color so you can easily identify the items that you missed that you need to go back and correct. And so now we're going on to grading and reworking the problem. We're calling those corrections. Miss Steph calls those redos. So notice if you see something that says redo or corrections, it's talking about the same thing. So it says, I'll be sending answers for homework checks, okay? So along with this email that I sent yesterday, I sent the answers for the homework that we were assigned on Thursday. Now, one of the things I realized was that when I gave you that assignment and I said it's due October 12th, I think we said, was that Monday? Anyway, that meant that that was the day you're actually going to hand it in to me. I didn't mean wait and complete it until then. Okay, and I realized I was not very clear on that. So if you have not done the homework that I'm talking about, go ahead and get that done. If you wait until it's due 2 weeks later, you're not going to have a clue what we're doing in class during the time. So so I'm sending the answers for you to check your work. I'm trusting that students will do their work first and then look at the answers to check it. Students are required to grade their homework. So after you finished it, you're going to indicate what you've missed by either Xing it or circling the number of the problem that you missed, okay? Do something to indicate what you've missed. Then at the top of the page, you need to mark how many you missed on that homework assignment. So in a minute, we'll look at the example of the student work and you'll see where she circled the ones she missed, and at the top of the paper, she wrote -2, okay?
So do we just, when we get something wrong, do we just say we can't, like we missed it, or do we correct it?
Okay, you're going to do both, but the first thing you're going to do is circle it or X it, okay? So you're going to grade every bit of your homework first. You're going to put the top, -2. Then you're going to do corrections, okay? You're not going to erase the problem that you originally did when you correct it. You're going to leave that wrong problem as it is on the initial work, okay? You're going to get either, so the example that I'm going to show you, the student had room at the end of the assignment on paper to do corrections. I'm totally fine with that. You don't have to get out a whole brand new sheet for corrections unless you want to. Okay, now obviously if there's not enough room left on the piece of paper to do corrections, then get a brand new sheet. Either way, you're going to label the section corrections. So I know as I'm flipping through your pages and I see, oh, here's corrections. Oh, look, they wrote at the top of their paper, they missed 2, and here's 2 corrections, okay? Whereas if I see, oh, look, they put at the top of their paper, they missed 5, but I only see 2 corrections, then that's where, you know, that's where I know that you didn't finish your work. I put a note on here for parents to see that if a student has below a B average, it's recommended that a parent check the homework so they are able to see what's going on at the time, okay? That's my recommendation. You and your parents can work out whatever y'all want to work out. This is your grade. Ultimately, your parents are your teacher because they're the ones kind of in charge of your homeschooling. My recommendation is for parents to check it, and then that way they can see, did my student only miss 1 or none, or did my student miss all of the assignment? Therefore, the parent knows what's going on every single time you're doing an assignment. They know if you're struggling and if you need help. Versus, oh my goodness, we've got a test, you've just done 2 weeks of work, and now we've got to go all the way back to the beginning of 2 weeks, okay? So this is kind of a way that parents can kind of keep an eye on what's going on with you and know immediately and not just when the test comes out. Because usually what happens is parents go, oh, hey, how's math going? And you go, oh, it's great, it's fine. And then you bring home a test and you've bombed it. And they go, well, what happened? I thought you were doing great. This way, your parents can see every time you do your homework, are you getting it? Are you not? Okay. If a student is struggling to correct a problem, so here you've done your homework, you've checked it, you've marked how many you've missed, then you sit down to do corrections, and you do corrections and you write the problem out again, and you start working it and go, I still can't get it. I know this is what the answer should be, but I can't get it. Okay, so if you're struggling, look back at the text examples. Okay, so look back first. If you need to ask for help, that's okay. Ask a parent, a sibling, talk to a friend. I don't want you to say, hey, tell me how to do this problem. I don't want you to say, you know, you can get guidance and help, but like, don't text your friend and say, hey, will you send me a picture of your number so-and-so? And then you just copy their work. You're not learning that way, okay? You're cheating, all right? The goal of this is for you to learn by making your corrections. Just like when I sit and work with a student one-on-one and I coach you through and say, what are you going to do next? And then how are you going to do this? You guys are learning through that process because you're figuring out the next step on your own. I'm not just telling you what the answer is, okay? So it says, if after looking at the text examples, you cannot figure out how to work them, students may ask a parent, sibling, or peer for help. If working with a peer, don't just copy their work, ask how to do the problem, then work it for yourself. Sometimes a little guidance is all it takes. Sometimes it's just one little hint and you know exactly what to do. I don't have a problem with students working with each other and learning together. I do have a problem with copying another work. That's cheating, okay? The next thing, if you have to have help with corrections, I would like you to indicate on your paper that you had help, okay? So let's say that you tried to work it, you couldn't get it, you asked a parent or a friend or somebody for help, then you're just gonna answer that problem and put out to the side with help. That way I know that I need to come alongside and say, hey, how's that going? I noticed you had trouble here, but you got some help. Did that take care of it or do you still need more help? Okay, that's the purpose in that. It's not going to count off on your grade if you got help. Okay, I'm not going to take points off because you got help. What I am going to take points off is that you didn't try and that you didn't get help. Okay. Let's see. The third bullet down on this page, when students have attempted to redo a problem and still cannot achieve the correct answer, then you're going to put a question mark, okay? So you're not just going to put number 3 question mark. I need to see that you've written the problem, that you've attempted to work it, you still can't get it, you've asked a parent, you've asked a friend, you've asked a sibling for help, y'all still can't figure it out. So you put a question mark on that problem. So that way, when we're going over homework in the next class, you're scanning through and you go, oh, I had a question mark here. I need help with this one. And that's when you go, hey, Miss Jennifer, I need help with this one. Can you work this one? And I go, absolutely. So then I walk you through it in class. Okay, so then you're able to go ahead and make that correction. So then when you get ready to hand in your work, you've done your corrections. Okay, so first step, you do your work, then you check it, then you make corrections. If you have trouble making corrections, you look back in your text. If you can't figure it out from looking at your text, ask a parent, sibling, whoever. If you still can't get it, mark it with a question mark, and that's what you ask me about in class the next period. Okay, now that leads me to say that if you have not done your homework, by the time we come to the class the next time to go over it, if you haven't done it, you don't know that you need my help. Okay, so that's why you need to make sure you're staying on top of your work. You need to make sure that you have your work done by the class period that we're going over it, so you can know that you need help. Okay. All right, and so that goes into due dates and turn-in dates. Due dates and turn-in dates are two different things, okay? You know that assignments are due the next period after they've been assigned, unless I specifically tell you a different date, okay? So like with the packet, you know, I would assign the packet and the whole thing wasn't due the next class period. I said, hey, the packet needs to be finished up and turned in by this date, okay? So homework should be completed by the next class period. That way you have done it, you've checked it, you've made corrections, and you know which ones you have question marks by that you need me to go over. All right. Now the actual hand-in date is different than the due date. We're not uploading anymore. Okay. I know that's been such a hassle. The only thing you're going to be left uploading is if you haven't got me test corrections for this grading period and this packet number 3 that's due. Okay. Those are the last things you're going to upload. Okay. Which, by the way, I did. Thank you, Evelyn, for reminding me. I did put a place in the upload section for the packet, for packet 3. If you've already uploaded it on a different date, you do not have to re-upload it, okay? If you uploaded it somewhere different, do not re-upload it. I've already gotten it. I've already pulled everything off. I sat and did that all day yesterday. So I've already got them. If you had uploaded before yesterday, I've got it. All right. So it says, for the rest of the semester, all homework is to be turned in on the Mondays that we meet in person at the co-op. So our next Monday that we meet in the co-op, I think, is October 12th, if I have my dates correct. So when we meet at the co-op on October 12th, you are going to be handing in work that starts with lesson 22 all the way up to whatever we have that Thursday. Well, I guess it's this upcoming Thursday, since next week's fall break. Okay. So last Thursday to this Thursday's work is what's going to be due on the 12th. Do not wait until that time period where it's due to start doing your work, because you're going to get behind. You might forget to do corrections. You might run out of time. You might not have me to help, whatever it is. Okay. If homework is not completed by the Monday turn-in date, if it's not turned in on that Monday, I need you to hand in a piece of paper headed telling me why you do not have your work to turn in that day. Okay, so everybody should turn in something to me, even if you're not finished with your work and you say, I just haven't finished it, or I forgot it at home, or whatever it was. You are to give me a piece of paper that says, this is why I do not have my homework on this date. Okay, so I've got documentation as to why it wasn't turned in on time. Now, it has to be turned in by the time you turn in your test. If you wait and turn it in at that point, you're losing 50% credit for being late. If you don't turn it in at all, it's a 0. Okay, so test date is the last date I will take the homework, and at that point, it's half off. So it's due on Monday, late by test date, 0 if it's not due me by test date. Earning homework points. Points will be earned for labeling your assignment with your name and your lesson number. Points will be earned for writing out lesson notes and steps. Every homework problem is worth at least 1 point, but some are going to be worth more depending on how many steps you have to go through. As we go through the rest of the year, we're going to have some more complicated problems. It's not always going to be just simplifying and answering and giving a simple answer. There may be a whole list of problems, just like solving for absolute values. How we have 2 things that we're actually having to solve for. Those are more complicated problems, so I might count those for more points. You have every opportunity to make a 100% on your homework by following these guidelines, because you have an opportunity to make corrections. The only way that you will drop below is by not making corrections, okay? And that's usually going to be because you've waited too late, you haven't done the work, whatever it is. So you have every chance to make 100% on your homework, okay? From time to time, I'll check some for accuracy. Most of the time, it's just going to be a completion grade, but I may just jump in and each lesson randomly grab 2 to check for accuracy. You should make 100 on that accuracy because you've made the corrections. I'm not grading the original work for accuracy. I'm looking at your corrections page. So let's say I choose to look at numbers 3 and 10. Okay, what I'll do is I'll circle them on your work so you know which ones I was grading for accuracy. And on number 3, if I see on your original work that you missed that, I'm going to be looking for it on your corrections page. If you corrected it and got it right there, then you've gotten all your points. I'm not going to count it wrong if you have made the correction on a correction page. So every opportunity to make 100 on this homework. Losing points if you don't head your paper, if you don't write out the notes and steps, if you don't show your work on either the original homework page or the corrections, if you don't check your homework and make corrections, you'll lose points. If it's not turned in on time. So those are the ways that you'll lose points, is by not following the guidelines. And so here's a note for students and parents. I'll email the homework answers, but not the solutions to the problems. Okay, so I'm not showing you step by step how to solve the problem. I'm just giving you the answer. You've got to do the solving. If parents need support in trying to help their student with a problem, please text me or email me and I'll be happy to send you the problem worked out. So if your parent's working with you and they've got the answer too, but they're not sure about the process and they need some help coaching you and guiding you, parents can email me or text me and I'll be happy to send them a worked out problem so they can help. But parents have to request that. But also if you have gotten help with that, that's when you write on there with help. Okay, so you indicate on that work that, hey, I needed help on this. Worksheets, packets, and tests. The previous guidelines apply to homework given from the textbook. Worksheets, packets, and tests are separate assignments designed to assess what you have learned as a result of the homework practice. You must show all work on these assignments, but if you have room to neatly show your work, you can work directly on the paper. If you don't, you'll need separate notebook paper. The main thing is that neatness and organization. Because worksheets, packets, and tests are separate assignments from homework and are being used to assess your understanding without help, answers will not be sent for worksheets, packets, and tests, okay? So I will only send out answers for the textbook homework practice, all right? Okay, this is what your heading and lesson notes should look like. So I've already showed you this, we talked about it, and you can see where I started, page 50, activities 3. So I labeled that right there, okay? And you can see where I started number 1. I started with writing the problem, which is that 5 over the cubed root of 75. And then I showed where I was multiplying by the cubed root of 75 over the cubed root of 75 2 more times. Then you can see where I worked through each step. I did my prime factorization. I put my boxes around my buddies, pulled them out, and then I simplified and I circled my answer, okay? So just kind of a general idea of working it out, showing your steps. The next thing I want to look at is the examples of another student's work and grading. And like I said in this box at the bottom, don't stress about this work. This is from Algebra 2, okay? So these problems, you may look at them and go, I don't know how to do that. Don't worry about that. I'm just showing you as an example, okay? This example does not include a heading or the lesson notes, so this is not what I'm saying it should look like. I just want you to see how they did the work and did the grading. Do pay attention to the example's neatness, organization, identification of the solutions for each problem, identification of missed problems, and the writing the total number of missed problems on the first page, and then their corrections. So when you look at this student's work, you can see where they wrote at the top, they've got lesson 1.4, and this was page 30, 1 through 51 odds, okay? So you can see how she wrote number 11, wrote the problem, solved. This one highlighted her answers. You can highlight, you can circle, whatever you want to do to indicate your answers. Just make sure it's a way that I can look at it and know immediately what the answer is. Then she skipped a line, went on to 13. There's her answer, highlighted, skipped a line, went on to 15. We're gonna move on down. You can tell by number 19, she was one of my students because she drew her lines where she multiplied 5 times 2 minus g. So just like I show you guys about the distributive property. Okay, then on the next page, again, she labeled what it was. kept on working her problems. You can see here, she put a circle in red over number 37. That's how she indicated to herself that this one was wrong and needed to be corrected. Going on, so as she's checking her homework, again, you can see she missed number 49. Okay, so we've got 5 pages in total, but she missed 2 of them. So that's why at the top of the first page, there's a -2 in that same color ink with a circle around it. So that way her teacher can look at it and say, hey, she missed 2 on this homework. So then when you go to corrections, you go, hey, look, there are 2 problems that have been corrected. Okay, so like I said, if there's room on a piece of paper to go ahead and add your corrections, that's fine. Just make sure to label them that, hey, these are the corrections. If you want to get a whole brand new piece of paper and write corrections at the top and do corrections on a separate piece of paper, that is just fine too. Okay, what questions do you guys have about this process? Anything that you're unsure of?
Are we gonna leave the wrong answer like on the page where we worked it first, and then put the right answer on the correction page?
Yes, you're going to leave the wrong answer. So just like you can see her number 49, she came up with -2.6. Okay, when she corrected it, she found that it's -16/3, and so let me see. If she went ahead, I know that that's a fraction, one was a fraction, one was a decimal, but if she left it, if she would have changed 16/3 to a decimal, it would have been -5.3 repeating. Okay, so even though she left it as you know, one answer was a decimal, it wasn't marked wrong because she put it as a decimal and it should have been a fraction. It was wrong because even 16/3 is -5.3 repeating. Okay, same thing with number, let's see, I won't even go into number 37 because this is literal equations and I won't stress y'all out about that when you have only variables in your equation. So anyway, so yes, you are not going to erase your mistakes when you check your work. If you've missed it, just circle it and leave it wrong, okay? And then on the corrections is where you will redo it and get it right, all right? Other questions? Thank you for asking that, Mark. Other questions about the process? It's going to take some getting used to. That's why I said I think it would be helpful if you went ahead and printed this out and kept it in the front of your binder. And that way, as you're doing your first, you know, several assignments, you've got it to refer back to. Okay, did I get my heading? Yep. Do I have my lesson notes? Yep. Did I show my work? Yep. So you're able to kind of do it as a checklist. Did I do this right? Did I do this? When I checked it, you know, did I circle all my answers? Did I mark the ones I missed? Did I write how many I missed at the top of my page? All that good stuff. Okay, so you've got it to refer back to. All righty. Any other questions before we move on?
We don't have to do that for packets and tests.
You do not have to do that for packets and tests. Now, just like with tests, so with a packet and with a test, I'm going to get the packet and test and I'm going to be the one to mark them and give them back to you for corrections. Okay, so because packets and tests are assessments, not practice, then so that's kind of how we're going to be shifting things. Your packets and tests are going to be more of the grading for accuracy after you have done your practice through the textbook. Okay. Anything else? All right. Speaking of the packet, if you have uploaded yours and you have turned it in, fantastic. If you have any questions, let's go ahead and look at those questions right now. If you have any questions about the packet, the first page was multi-step equations, so using our order of operations to be able to help us first simplify, then undo to solve for x. Any questions on page 1?
Number 2, 4, 5, and 8.
Okay, so look at number 2. The first thing you would need to do is simplify first. You've got a 1 and a +5 on the right-hand side. Okay? So just real quick, we're not gonna be able to do all of these, but I'll kind of do a quick thing. So basically I've got 6 equals 1 plus 5 is 6 minus 2n, okay? If I wanted to take away 6 over here and take away 6 over here, then I have 0 equals negative 2n. Divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, so n is equal to 0. All right, so don't be afraid. If I subtract something on a side and it takes everything away, then my number is 0, right? With number 4, again, if I take away 5 here, take away 5 here, I have a equals negative 5, or actually over, whoop, a, okay? So then that means I'm going to add 5a here, add 5a here, so 6a is equal to 0. Divide by 6, divide by 6, a equals 0. Okay? With number 6, notice here, I've got to simplify before I can do anything. I've got 5p and 3p on that same side. So p minus 1 equals 8p minus 8. Subtract 8p, subtract 8p. So now I have negative 7p minus 1 equals negative 8. Add 1, negative 7p equals negative 7. Divide by negative 7, divide by negative 7, p equals 1. Okay, so you may have to simplify first, then you start undoing the problem. Okay, so take some time to go back through those, look to see what you need to do. Remember, if I have a number outside, I've got to distribute to each term. If I have a negative on the outside, that distributes just like a negative 1. Distribute here. Once I've distributed, I need to simplify, then I need to solve. Okay. Page 2, clearing fractions. Questions about that? Any questions about clearing fractions? Remember, to clear fractions, you're going to multiply by the least common multiple of the denominators. Okay, so if I only have one denominator, I only multiply by that one. But if I have more than one, then I've got to look at what is the least common multiple of the denominators, multiply the whole thing, simplify, and solve.
Can you do number 8?
I'm sorry?
Can you do number 8?
Number 8, sure. Okay, so here, notice I have a denominator of 4 and a denominator of 2. So what is the least common multiple of 4 and 2?
2.
No, least common multiple. This means that what number is a multiple of both 4 and 2? Good, 4. Okay, so I know that I need to multiply my whole entire equation by 4. So that means I multiply this by 4, this by 4, this by 4, this by 4. Okay, so now I have 4 times 1 over 4x plus 4 times x equals 4 times negative 3 plus 4 times 1 over 2x. Okay, so my purpose in doing that was for you to be able to see that I've multiplied each term by 4. Is everybody good with that so far? Now I've multiplied each term by 4, but so now I need to start simplifying. So when I look at my first term, I have 4 times 1 over 4. My 4s are going to be able to cancel there because 4 divided by 4 is 1. So I'm left with 1 times x, so that's just going to be x. Plus 4 times x is 4x equals 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Now I get over to my other fraction, and And I can see that I've got a 4 in my numerator and a 2 in the denominator. They are both divisible by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 times 1 is 2. And so now I've got plus 2x. Any questions on how I got there? I multiplied every term by 4. And then this next step was simplifying. So I end up with x plus 4x equals negative 12 plus 2x. What is my next step going to be? Anybody know what I need to do?
Move the 2x.
Okay, before I do that, there's something I need to do before that.
Combine x and 4x.
I want to combine x and 4x right here. I want to look to see, are there any like terms that can be combined? So now I've got 5x equals negative 12 plus 2x. So now I'm going to move that 2x. Because it is positive, I'm going to move it by subtracting. So 5x minus 2x is 3x equals negative 12. Remember, these two, when I subtract them, they just go away because 2x minus 2x is 0. So now I have 3x equals negative 12. Divide both sides by 3, and x equals negative 4. Any questions?
I need your consent on a few items to continue.
And my phone needs my consent on a few items to continue. All right. Any other questions on clearing fractions? All right, so that was page 2. Page 3, we had a little more of the same, and I think on this page we just had all bonus. I think I had worked example 11 in class, and so we had that 12, 13, 14, and 15, I think, were bonus. I think we had also worked number 16, but I think this page was all bonus. Then we moved on to two-step equations with decimals. Okay, so one of the things I want to tell you is that, first of all, clearing decimals, this is going to be the side that I actually grade. The others are going to be for bonus. But on these, we just clear the denominator just like we did with fractions. Okay, just like the previous examples we did with fractions. So if I have a 10.44 in my denominator, then I just multiply both sides by 10.44. So that multiplies by v, multiplies by negative 2.9, multiplies by negative 4.422. Now in these situations, if you're working with a calculator, there's no need to have to clear your decimals, okay, by multiplying by 10, 100, 1,000. Multiplying by your powers of 10 helps you if you're not dealing with a calculator. It helps you to not deal with such, with such detailed numbers. If you wanted to clear, you could, but you wouldn't have to. You could just punch it all in the calculator. Let's say I was going to clear it, okay? So here I'm going to end up with v minus, let's see, we've got 10.44 times negative 2.9 or times 2.9, that gives me 30.276 is equal to 4.422, 10.44, whoop, I didn't write it in. 4.422 times 10.44 gives me a negative 46.16568. Okay, see, like I said, I could clear my decimals here, but notice I'm going to have to multiply. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places after my decimal. Okay, so I know that 1 place after the decimal is 10, 2 places after the decimal is 100, 3 places is 1,000, 4 places would be 10,000, 5 places would be 100,000. So I'm going to have to multiply my entire problem by 100,000. So I have 100,000 B minus. Now remember, if I multiply by 100,000, that means I move my decimal 5 places. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'd have to add 2 zeros in there. 3027600 equals negative, and this is the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 4, 6, 1, 6, 5, 6, 8. Dealing with some mighty big numbers here, but they're at least whole numbers. So I would add 3027600, add 3027600. So now I have 100,000 B is equal to, so I have negative, let's see what this number is, 4,616,568 plus 3,027,600. Okay, so let's see. So I'm going to keep the sign of the larger, which is the negative, and find the difference. So 4,616,568 minus 3,027,600 equals 1,588,968. Divide by 100,000. Divide by 100,000. B is equal to 15.88968. Okay, so you could have multiplied and cleared your denominator, and first you clear your denominator and then you clear your decimals. If you didn't want to do that, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump down here and show you we ended up with B minus 30276 equals negative 46.16568. So I would add 30.276, add 30.276, and B equals, I go to my calculator, I've got a negative plus a positive, take the sign of the larger, find the difference. So I'm going to have 46 decimal 16568 minus 30 decimal 276 equals 15.88968. So with a calculator, you can see that it was a whole lot less confusing and a whole lot easier than having to clear the decimals. Clearing the decimals is going to be easier when I'm dealing with a smaller problem and I don't have a calculator to deal with. Okay, so if you've got a calculator, use it. Okay, get into the practice of using it to work out these, especially with decimals. Evelyn?
Can you simplify like the answers like after the decimal?
Okay, so like based on if there's a whole bunch of numbers after the decimal, the directions will tell you if there's a specific thing to round to. Like on this one in particular, if we wanted to round to the nearest hundredth, we could have V equals negative 15.89. Okay, or you could have put V equals negative 15.9. If it's a decimal, I would like you to round, you can either leave it exactly as it is, or if you want to round, either do to the nearest tenth or hundredth. Okay, I don't want you to do it to the nearest whole number. I want you to at least show 1 or 2 decimal places after. But if the directions tell you a specific place to round to, then follow the directions. Okay, so you can either leave it as it is, round to the nearest tenth or the nearest hundredth. Chad?
Is it break time now?
Let's see. It is 11:14, so we've got, we're 4 minutes over. So what we'll do is when we come back, we'll continue scooting through the packet, and then we'll review what we've done recently with our radicals in the denominator, and then we'll keep on moving. Okay, so take 5. All righty. Let's get on back to it. Okay, so that was clearing fractions that have decimals in them. Like I said, I'm only going to be grading the right-hand side that was just clearing decimals, okay? And I'm going to have the fractions with decimals all be bonus, okay? And then skipping on from there, we had our absolute values. So remember that with absolute values, step 1 is to isolate the absolute value. Step 2 is to set up the positive form of the equation, and which that means is just that I drop the absolute value sign and leave it exactly like it is. The second equation is where I leave the left side of the equation exactly the same. I leave without the absolute value signs, and I take the negative of what is on the right-hand side. So all of these, I just had a single number on the right-hand side, so I just had to take the negative of it. So if it was already negative, it became positive. If it was positive, it became negative. And I told you you did not have to worry about the extraneous solutions on these, okay? So any questions about these absolute value equations? Any questions? All right, so that is it on the packet as a whole. I would like them to be uploaded by the end of the day if possible. The latest I will take them is Thursday, okay? So if I don't have them by Thursday, if I don't have anything, then it's just going to be going in as a 0, okay? Because grades I'll be finishing up the end of this week. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move along. Let's run back real quick to lesson 22. Do a quick review of that. Rationalizing the denominators. So we talked about how if there's a radical in my denominator that is a problem, the way I get rid of it is by multiplying by the radical over itself in a fraction, okay? If it's a square root, I have to multiply 2. If it's a cubed root, I'm multiplying 3. I think in your homework, you're going to have 4th roots, which means you have to have 4 of them in your denominator. So any questions? Okay, so our homework was activities 3 and 4. Like I said, if you have not done it yet, go ahead and get that done before the next class so you can be sure to ask questions. Okay, so if you have not done activities 3 and 4, make sure to get them done before Thursday's class. Hopefully you've already done them. And this was our first example of using our new homework lesson information, okay? Now, I think some of y'all might have started these in class on Thursday and all you did was head your paper, you didn't put the lesson notes. That is okay for lesson 22. You don't have to go back and redo it. If you started this in class on Thursday and you got out a sheet of paper and you headed it and everything, don't stress about it, okay? I will not count off on lesson 22 for not having lesson notes. So if I have the cubed root of 75 here, how many times am I going to have to multiply to get that cubed root of 75 out of the denominator? How many total times? Good, 3 total times. Look at the one underneath it. 12 divided by the 4th root of 8. How many times am I going to have to multiply the 4th root of 8 over the 4th root of 8? I've got to have a total of 4, so I've got to multiply it 3 more times. I already have 1 in the original problem, so I need 3 more to get that 8 out from under the radical, okay? Same thing with the other 2. I've got a cubed root and a 4th root. Now on this one, identify possible find the possible solutions, identify extraneous solutions, okay? This will be probably the last time you're going to have to identify extraneous solutions. Questions on activities 3 or 4? If you have not done it yet, go ahead and make sure you've done it by Thursday. So this is going to be your first homework that you're going to practice with, that after you've done it, I want you to check it, mark the ones you miss if you miss any, and then make corrections, okay? If you have not done that, then that'll be your first bit of homework, is to check it and make corrections. I sent these answers, and I think we had even numbered them. We said that, I think I made a new copy of this, and so that's why everything that we did the other day is gone. So that was 2, we did 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that way we all know what's number 1, what's number 2, all that good stuff. Any questions about that? All right, then lesson 23 is where we had started, and we're going to go ahead and review and pick back up where we left off. So notice where this is written out, 1, 2, 3, 4. When you do your lesson notes, that's what you're going to write in your lesson notes, okay? So when you head your paper, you put your heading on it, and you write lesson notes, that's what you're going to write. Divide the coefficients. Now, if you want to write everything else, you can, but you don't have to. You can just write step 1, divide the coefficients. Step 2, divide the radicands. Step 3, rationalize the denominator if necessary. Step 4, reduce if necessary. So there are your lesson notes right there, and we'll practice on that in just a minute. So the example they gave us was 12 times the square root of 10. We talked about how this little funky symbol, for whatever reason, means divide, divided by 4 times the square root of 15. That means whatever comes first becomes my numerator. Whatever comes after the division sign becomes my denominator. Okay, so when I write it vertically, the first thing I do is go ahead and simplify my coefficients. I look to see what they're both divisible by to do that. Then I can keep my radicals under the denominator and under the radical sign, and then I can cancel those just like I did the coefficients. I said, hey, what is divisible? What is 10 and 15 both divisible by? They're both divisible by 5. So then once I've done that, I end up with 3 times the square root of 2 over the square root of 3. Now step 4 would tell me that I need to look, are there any whole numbers here that can cancel? And there are not, so I know I'm good there. And then I look to see if there are any other radicals that can be canceled, and I cannot, okay? But what is the problem with this right here? I have got a radical in my denominator, so I have to rationalize the denominator. So it's the square root of 3, so I have to multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3. So 3 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 3 becomes 3 times the square root of 6. The square root of 3 times the square root of 3 becomes the whole number 3. Once I'm there, now I can see that those will cancel, and my solution is just the square root of 6. Okay? I think we had started the first couple of these in homework, in classwork, but we'll go ahead and start them again just to give you a quick review. So 18 times the square root of 6 over 3 times the square root of 2. Okay, so the first thing I do is go ahead and look at my coefficients. 18 and 3 are both divisible by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Then I can do my next step all together in the same problem. Okay, I can go ahead and simplify under the radical at this point. They are both divisible by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So now I can see that I have both 1s in my denominator. So my denominator I don't have to worry about anymore. And I can go ahead and put this as 6 times the square root of 3. Everything else was able to cancel out. My radical is in simplest form, so there's nothing I can do there. So that is my answer. Any questions on that one? We've already done these, so you should already have it written in your book, but I just wanted to go over it real quick. The next one is 20 times the square root of 24 over 5 times the square root of 3. Again, step 1, I'm going to divide my coefficients. 5 and 20 are both divisible by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 20 divided by 5 is 4. 24, the square root of 24 and the square root of 3. Both of these are divisible by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 24 divided by 3 is 8. I can see that everything in my denominator is now a 1. So I can look, and my whole number is 4. My radical is the square root of 8. Now, the square root of 8 is not simplified. So now I've got to do the square root of 8 in prime factors. So that means I start with 2 and I say 8 is 2 times 4, and 4 is 2 times 2. So there's my prime factors of 8. I look at these, I've got 2 buddies. So that means the 4 I already have is multiplied by the 2 that comes out. I have a 2 under the radical. 4 times 2 is 8, times the square root of 2 is going to be my final answer. Any questions on that? I think that's where we left off on Thursday with this particular problem. Is everybody good with that, seeing it for the second time? Any questions? Okay, let's go ahead and look at the next one. I have 9 times the square root of 3 divided by 3 times the square root of 12. Again, I'm going to start by simplifying my coefficients. I have a 9 and a 3. Both of them are divisible by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Then I'm going to simplify my radicals. I have a 3 and a 12. Both of them are divisible by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay? So now this one's a little bit different because my radical is now the square root of 1. What's the square root of 1? Just 1, right? So 3 times 1 is 3. So in my numerator, my radical has gone away. But notice what is in the denominator? The square root of 4. Now, look at that for a minute. I know I can't have a radical in my denominator. Does the square root of 4 have a perfect square? Yeah, so if I just simplify this, I see that I've got 3 over 2 because the square root of 4 is 2. I do not have to multiply by the square root of 4 over the square root of 4, but let's say I missed that. Let's say I did not catch that the square root of 4 has a perfect square of 2. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to work it just like I do everything else. Okay, so that means I would multiply by the square root of 4 over the square root of 4. Okay, and so here I would have 3 times the square root of 4 over 4. So then at this step, I would recognize that the square root of 4, I would go ahead and make it prime factors. 2 times 2 over 4. Those are my buddies. That means I already have a 3. I multiply by 2. My denominator is 4. So now I've got 6 over 4, which would reduce and become, excuse me, what would that become? 3 halves? 3 over 2? Okay. So either way, whether I saw it right here and I said, hey, that's 3 over 2, or if I did not recognize that 4 was a perfect square and I went ahead and multiplied to clear the, to rationalize the denominator, either way, I'm going to end up with the same answer. Okay. Any questions about that one? Any questions about why I did what I did? Okay, let's look at the last one. 25 times the square root of 3 over 10 times the square root of 18. Again, I'm going to start simplifying my coefficients. 25 and 10 are both divisible by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 25 divided by 5 is 5. Now I have the radicals, I have the square root of 3 and the square root of 18. Both divisible by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 18 divided by 3 is 6. So now when I simplify, I've got 5 in my numerator. Remember, the square root of 1 is 1, so I don't have to worry about that. Over 2 times the square root of 6. The part of this problem that is a problem is that square root of 6. 2 being a whole number can stay in the denominator all day long. It is fine. but it's that square root of 6 that's a problem. So that means I'm going to have to multiply my numerator by the square root of 6, denominator by square root of 6. Okay. Sorry, hang on. Okay, so when I multiply these, I have 5 times the square root of 6 over, I already have that 2, but when I multiply the square root of 6 by the square root of 6, remember it comes out from under the radical as a 6. So 5 times the square root of 6 over 12. Once I've simplified, I'm looking to see, can I reduce my coefficients at all? I have a 5 and a 12. No factors in common. I have the square root of 6. I know that prime factors will be 2 times 3, so there's nothing I can simplify there. So there is my answer. Any questions on that one? Okay. What we're going to do is, let's see. How much time do we have? 11:37. Go ahead and get out a piece of paper. We're going to go ahead and get our lesson, our paper started for this assignment. Okay. So what we're going to do is, let's see. Let me open my textbook so I can open a different little piece of paper on here. This is page 51. Okay. So you got your notebook paper. So let's go ahead and start by heading it. So I would put on mine, Jennifer Fountain. Underneath it, I'm going to put lesson 23, page 51. And actually, we're going to have pages 51 and 52. We'll cover our whole homework for this section. So I'll go ahead and put page 51 to 52. Okay. So my little paper doesn't have that big margin at the top. So we're just going to pretend like that's in the white section at the top. Okay. Now I'm going to come down to the first line and I will put activities 2, page 51. And we're going to go ahead and number these 1, 2, 3, 4, going from top side to side. So number 1 is going to be 35 times the square root of 10 over 7 times the square root of 2. So go ahead and write that problem. Oh, what did I forget? Y'all are going to kill me. Erase that part. Forgot our lesson notes. Okay, so the first thing we have to do on the first line is lesson notes. All right, so step 1, divide coefficients. Step 2, divide radicands. Step 3, rationalize the denominator if necessary. And 4, reduce if necessary. Okay, so we've got our lesson notes. Step 1, divide the coefficients. Step 2, divide the radicands. Step 3, rationalize the denominator if necessary. Step 4, reduce if necessary. Then I'm going to write activities 2. Page 51. Number 1, 35 times the square root of 10 over 7 times the square root of 2. So now as I'm working this problem, all I've got to do is glance right at the top of my paper, and I've got those steps written right there for me. Okay, so I know that the first thing is to divide the coefficients. So that's where I'm going to start. Both 35 and 7 are both divisible by what? 7. Good. So 7 divided by 7 is 1. 35 divided by 7 is 5. Step 2, divide radicands. I have a 10 and a 2. They are both divisible by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Equals 35 reduced to the whole number 5. Under the radicand, I have a 5. Everything in my denominator is a 1. Step 3, I don't have a denominator to rationalize, so I'm good there. Step 4, reduce if necessary. I know I don't have to reduce coefficients. There's nothing that I have to do there. My radical is the square root of 5. That is a prime factor, so I know it's done. So I circle my answer. On this problem, this is considered showing your work. I just wrote the problem, I showed what could cancel, and I wrote the answer. Okay? So now it's going to be totally up to you if you decide to work side to side or go completely from top to bottom. I know that's just a personal preference for everybody. I'm going to go ahead and work side to side. So number 2, I'm going to have 8 times the square root of 3 over 4 times the square root of 27. Look at step 1, and I want you to do step 1. I have an 8 and a 4 as my coefficients. What are they both divisible by? Good, 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Go ahead and do step 2. Simplify your radicals. What are 3 and 27 both divisible by? 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 27 divided by 3 is 9. So now I've got 2 over the square root of 9. Hopefully you know that the square root of 9 is a perfect square, and so that equals 3. So there's your final answer. I didn't have to rationalize that one because I know that the square root of 9 is 3. If I did not remember the square root of 9 was 3, then I would rationalize my denominator, okay, and keep working from there. But knowing these things are going to help you not do as much work. All right, so now on my example page, I'm going to skip a line and I'm going to write number 3 because I want to skip lines between when I move down a page, I move down a line on my paper. So I have 42 times the square root of 30 over 12 times the square root of 5. Step 1, what is 42 and 12 both divisible by? I have to think about that for a minute. So I'm going to think about my factors of 42. I know that could be 2 times 21. I know that it could be 3 times 18, I think. No. 3 times 14. And I know 6 times 7. So by going through those factors, I can look at 12 and go, hey, The biggest one that will go both into 42 and 12 is 6. So 12 divided by 6 is 2. 42 divided by 6 is 7. Now I'm looking at my radicals, 30 and 5, both divisible by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 30 divided by 5 is 6. So now I'll look to see what I've got left in my numerator. 42 simplified to 7. The square root of 30 became the square root of 6. Over in my denominator, I have 2 times the square root of 1. So that's just going to be 2. All right, so I've divided my coefficients. I've divided my radicals. Step 3 says to rationalize the denominator. The only time I rationalize the denominator is if I have a radical in the denominator. I do not, so I don't have to do step 3. Now look at step 4. I look at my coefficients. I have a 7 and a 2. Neither of them can divide into each other. And then I have the square root of 6, which would be 2 times 3, so I know that that will not be simplified. Therefore, I can put a circle around my answer because I know that that is my final answer in simplest form. Any questions about that one? Let's do number 4. 28 times the square root of 5 over 21 times the square root of 30. Go ahead and simplify your coefficients and your radicals. What are 28 and 21 both divisible by? Think about your factors. What's the largest one that they have in common? Now 5 and 30. So for 28 and 21, I know 21, the only factors of 21 are 7 times 3. So I'm going to look to 28 and see, is it divisible by 3? Is it divisible by 7? It is divisible by 7. So 21 divided by 7 is 3. 28 divided by 7 is 4. 5 and 30, both divisible by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 30 divided by 5 is 6. So in my numerator, I have 4 over 3 times the square root of 6. Okay, that's step 1 and 2. Step 3, rationalize the denominator. What part of my denominator is the problem? The radical. So to clear my radical, I have to multiply by the square root of 6 over the square root of 6. I'm showing my work. I'm going ahead and writing that out. So now I have 4 times the square root of 6 over 3 times 6. So that means I have 4 times the square root of 6 over, I'm going to go ahead and multiply. 3 times 6 is 18. All right, I have rationalized my denominator, but now when I go to simplify, I've got to look at my coefficients. I have a 4 and an 18. What are both of those going to be divisible by? 2. They're both even numbers. So 18 divided by 2 is 9. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I have 2 times the square root of 6 over 9. I've simplified my coefficients. I cannot simplify the square root of 6 anymore, so I can put a circle around it because that's my final answer. Questions?
Don't you multiply the coefficient with the radical?
The only time you cannot multiply a coefficient and a radical because they are not like terms. One is a whole number, one is a rational number, one is an irrational number. Okay, remember imperfect squares are irrational numbers, so these are not like terms, so I cannot multiply them together. Okay, so when you're dealing with radicals in this section, don't use a calculator. Okay, you're not going to want to do the square root of 6 on your calculator. All right, So dealing with radicals, just leave it as a simplified radical. So I can't multiply 2 times the square root of 6. I have to leave it separated like that. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the page to page 52. And so I'm going to skip a line and write activities 3, page 52. Again, I'm going to go top across the top and bottom. So I've got 1, 2, and I'm going to skip a few lines to put 3 and 4. The one I want to look at together is going to be number 3. So go ahead and number places 1 and 2 to leave you some space. So 1 would be the square root of 32 over 4 times the square root of 2. Number 2 will be 5 times the square root of 10 over the square root of 50. 3 is 12 times the 4th root of 100 over the 4th root of 162. Need to write that a little bit. And then 4 will be 5 times the cubed root of 30 over the cubed root of 45. Okay, so again, when I look at these and I go, ooh, number 3 looks really different from what I've been working. These are some really big numbers. I'm kind of freaked out and intimidated and I don't know what to do. Okay, and I go, do I start by finding prime factors? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, guess what? Look at your lesson notes and it tells you right there at the top. Step 1, divide coefficients. All righty, well, my coefficients, I have a 12 in the numerator and nothing in the denominator, so I know there's nothing I can divide there. So step 2, divide the radicals. Okay, so I've got 100 and 162. I might not have a clue what both of those are divisible by, but I know that they're both even, so that's where I'm going to start. So 100 divided by 2 is 50. 162 divided by 2 will be 81. Okay. Now, this is going to be a little different as we rationalize these denominators. Because I want you to think about, if I've got the 4th root of 81, I don't want to have to multiply everything by the square root of the 4th root of 81. I don't want to have to multiply that 3 more times because that's a really big number. So let's do something for a minute. I want you to look at the 4th root of 81. I want to go ahead and break it into prime factors. So let's go ahead and do that for both of these numbers. I'm going to do 12 times the 4th root of 50, and I'm going to go ahead and break down 50. 50 is 2 times 25. 25 is 5 times 5. By breaking this down, I can see whether or not I'm going to be able to simplify. Bless you, Kinsley. Bless you. Same thing with the denominator. I've got the 4th root of 81. It is not even, so I know I cannot divide 81 by 2, but I can divide it by 3. I know that 9 times 9 makes 81. And what makes up 9? 3 times 3, right? So I know I've got 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. What do you notice I have? I have 4 3s. So when I look at this, I can see that all 4 of these 3s can help me rationalize my denominator. So they can come out as a group of 3. By looking at my prime factorization, if I've got big numbers, before you rationalize the denominator, see if you can pull out any whole numbers first. So here, I saw that I've got 12 times the 4th root. We saw that we could not break down the 4th root. That's not 75, it's 50. Over 3. Then I'll look to say, hey, I've got a 12 in the numerator, a 3 in the denominator, both divisible by 3. So my answer will be 4 times the 4th root of 50. Okay? So when you're looking at these, see if, before you rationalize, if there's something that you can simplify before you rationalize. See if that will help. Now, if all else fails, you can still multiply by, like in this one, we could have multiplied by this, the 4th root of 81 over the 4th root of 81 times the 4th root of 81 over the 4th root of 81. We could have multiplied it all out and still gotten the same answer. It would have taken a little more time and a bit more room on the paper. All righty. So the rest of our homework, if you want to go ahead and jot at the top of your paper so you've got it written, you can put up there by your lesson 23, page 51 through 52. We'll go ahead and write activities 2, 3, and 4. We've already done activities 2. We did one problem on activities 3, so that leaves activities 4 for you to keep practicing with. Now notice on activities 4, it says to solve for extraneous or identify extraneous roots where appropriate. Don't worry about that. You don't have to go through that process, okay? So on activities 4, if you want to mark out where it says identify extraneous roots, you can mark that out. Now, if you want to do it, okay? But you don't have to. So now you should have your lesson page ready. Okay, so we've already done lesson 22. We kind of got it started in class on Thursday. Now you've got lesson 23 started. So all you'll have to do is finish up activities 3 and do activities 4. Any questions? Any questions about our format with our homework? Any questions about the assignments? Now remember, on Thursday, I want us to, we already looked at lesson 22. Actually, we didn't look at lesson 22 answers. On Thursday, go ahead and make sure you have done lessons 22 and 23. Make sure you have checked them and made corrections. And then I will be answering questions about them on Thursday. That'll be the first thing we do in class on Thursday, is I will go through lesson 22 and 23, ask if we have questions, if there's any that need to be worked, and then we're going to move on to lesson 53. Okay? Not lesson 53, page 53, lesson 24. Any questions? All right, everybody knows what's due on Thursday? Even though we won't actually be handing it in until the Monday we get back after break, still go ahead and get the work done. Okay? Don't wait. Have it done by Thursday. Okay? If you get stuck on something and you need some help, be sure to let me know. If you feel like there is anything you are behind on right now and you need additional help, please also let me know about that. Okay? Go ahead and get your packets uploaded, and final grades will be done by the end of the week. Okay? We'll go ahead and finish up a few minutes early, so if you're ready to go, you may go. If you have questions and you want to stick around for a minute, feel free to stick around. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hope you have a good weekend, or not a week, good grief. I'll see y'all Thursday. Today's Monday, isn't it? Huh? Who had a question? Anybody? Do you have a question, Sadie?